Hello, my name is Lynn Desert. I'm an executive career coach, and with me I have Natalie Washington. She runs a recruiting firm called JWN Recruitment, and she works with executives and managers and everybody else. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that I know probably you faced, and that's rejection when you didn't get the job. So we'll be back with you in just a minute to have a conversation about what you might do about that conversation. Talk to you in a minute. Well, welcome back. And you know, Natalie, we were talking the other day about the fact, and I've had some of my clients, they get rejected and they think they have the job, they know they have the job, they're down to maybe the final two, right? The final two, and they're waiting for the phone call, and all of a sudden they get the call saying, sorry, we chose somebody else. And that's a really tough time because, you know, they're pumped up and then all of a sudden it's smack in the face, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And from your perspective, because you've been on that other side of having to deliver the news,
Yes.
is how well do people handle that conversation? And what maybe you can give some tips about what they can do about how to manage it a little bit better.
Right. So it is very difficult. Let's not pretend that it isn't. And it wounds our ego. And then, it might even set us spiraling for, moving forward with other jobs. And that's what we want you to avoid. So when the rejection call comes or the rejection letter comes, try not to take it personal, although it is personal to you. And we understand that. And there is no harm in following up. I get many times, that, well, could you tell me why I didn't get the job or what that other person had that I didn't bring to the table? So sometimes you'll get those answers, but more likely than not, you won't. And that, I want you to know, is the normal, and no one is really trying to avoid you. It is just part of the process because sometimes it's intangible. Sometimes, it's just one little thing or another that maybe even the interviewer or hiring manager can't even identify. So we don't want you to get wrapped up in that minutia, but there are some things that you can do, or there are clues that may be coming that will happen during that process when you're talking to the person on the other line that's giving the rejection or when you're reading the letter. So we'll talk a little bit about what that is.
Wow. Okay. But before we move on to that, one of the things we also talked about is that from a legal perspective, oftentimes employers, they really, it's kind of the adage of less is more. So
Absolutely.
The less you say, the better positioned you are because you don't open yourself up to risk. Because, while we would like to think, and I think that most of the time candidates are selected based upon a whole slew of qualifications and maybe cultural fit and other things. The person who's rejected thinks that there may be some biases or there may be some, something else discrimination going on.
Right.
When in fact, there probably isn't, but it may appear to be.
Absolutely.
And so what that does is it allows the company really to mitigate their position by not sharing all of the information
available.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
For sure.
I know. It's a really, it's kind of a fine line,
isn't
it?
It really is. And what we don't want to do is have people leave with a bad taste in their mouth. And many times that's what occurs.
Right.
But nothing that it's done maliciously or intentionally. It just happens to be part of the process.
So I'm just wondering, sometimes you hear those statements over and over. It says, well, we found somebody who, maybe was a little better fit, or we found somebody who, they had this one little experience, and you kind of scratch your head and go, well, I didn't think that was a major part of the job, and all of a sudden it is. Yeah. I mean, is that code for anything that they, because, sometimes we got to do that deep dive to try and figure it out. We want to we grab on to any little word that someone has said, and it gets blown out. Right. Do you see that?
I do. Okay. And it's raw for the person that's just been rejected, so I understand where it's coming from. Mm-hmm. But that may not actually be the reality of what it is. A lot of it is the employer just trying to let someone down gently. So we give a little bit, but nothing that is concrete, so it leaves you with yourself scratching your head. But what I will say on the plus side, when a company is inviting you either verbally or through communication through a letter, to stay connected with them, and they would encourage you to apply for other opportunities that you may be interested in, qualify. That is the good news. Oh. That means they really are interested, because they won't say it if they're not. There'll be a whole different level of communication, which would leave that piece of it out.
Now, I'm going to bet that invitation comes because there's a really positive tone. Yes. With how you've handled the rejection. Is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what would be like an example of a really good tone? Like if somebody called and said, you didn't get the job, what would be some of the things you might say back to that manager or to that recruiter that really shows that you're handling it very professionally?
One of the things is to thank them and let them know, oh, I'm disappointed, but I understand that companies have to make these decisions. I wish it was me that was getting the opportunity. However, I do respect your position, and I hope that I have an opportunity to interview for other positions in the future. That type of tone, keeping it upbeat.
It sounds like I want to hire you based on that. I mean, that sounds great.
But that's where you want to keep it.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And then, and then after you get off the phone, then you can really.
Yeah. Then you pull your hair out and call your best friend and scream.
Absolutely. Say, why didn't I get that job? I know. And then you do the soul searching or whatever. But we have to remember at the end of the day that there's a lot of candidates,
and only one person can get the job. Exactly.
Yeah. And even if you get to the top two, you're doing really well. Right. And so it's just a matter of finding another company with something that has a job maybe similar, where you are going to be the number one
candidate.
Or that company may come back at some point because they have another position that opens up that's similar.
And just on another note, when you do handle it professionally, you don't know who the hiring manager or recruiter knows within the industry, that they have a buddy that comes up that's looking for someone, and they will refer you if it's been a good experience, because they wanted to hire you, feel bad that they couldn't hire you, but want somebody else to have the experience of you for their friend or a colleague in another either industry and or company. Right. So sometimes that's what can happen when you handle that rejection properly.
Yeah, that would be a really good boon.
I've seen it.
Have you?
Absolutely, on more than one occasion.
Wow. So great tip. Well, Natalie and I hope that these tips are going to help you the next time you get a rejection letter or a rejection phone call, because you never know. Leaving things on a very positive note could lead you to the next job. That recruiter, that manager that you were interviewing with, they may pass your name along, and that's what we hope will happen to you. We'll see you next time.